Hey guys, how's it going? In today's video, I want to show you how to winterize a fountain. And the reason why you want to do this is because if you have not properly prepped your fountains, water can settle into different areas of it. And then when that water freezes, it expands and can cause cracking, which is not good. We don't want that. So this is the Grand Kensington 3-tier fountain that we installed this spring, and we've enjoyed it so much. It's perfect size and sound for the area. We've got it in the garden, and I want to get as many years out of it as I possibly can. So I consulted with Henry Studio, who made this fountain, and asked them what are the proper steps that I need to be taking to make sure I get the most out of this fountain. So huge thank you to Henry Studio for partnering with us on this video. In fact, we have a lot of pieces from them in our garden already. In our Versailles garden, we've got Persephone. We've got the Grand Ram's Head urn, which is this gorgeous, glorious, huge urn. We've got a large Hebe statue underneath the weeping willow, and I just planted a bunch of hydrangeas around her, and it's just so beautiful. We've also got the weathered bird bath. We've got the leaf motif urns with the pedestals. So if you guys are in the market for some new concrete for your garden, you should definitely check out their website. We will link it down below. We've got some gorgeous stuff. And the steps I'm going to show you today actually apply to any water fountain. They can be small ones, larger ones than this. In fact, if you have a small fountain that you're able to move into protection, like into a shed, barn, garage, that is the most ideal thing. But fountains like this, they're not going anywhere. We're not going to move this every single winter. So I'm going to just show you how to winterize this one right where it stands. But first, I am going to unplug this pump because I don't want the water to be running while we're trying to winterize it. I just have it plugged into an extension cord down here. It'll just take a second to stop flowing. Also, the best time to winterize your fountain is after you've seen the first frost on your windshield of your car, which we saw yesterday morning. So that's what prompted me to get this done. So step number one is to drain all the water from your fountain, and I'm going to start with the bottom two bowls first. They both have plastic plugs that screw in. I'm going to be using a 24mm socket with an extension because that water is frigid. Aaron got me all set up with this so I didn't have to reach down in there. So I'm going to start with this bowl first. You can see the plug right down in here. So I'm just going to fit this socket over that and just start unscrewing it. And the water will come out right below here into this bottom bowl. I'm going to grab all the leaves out of this bowl. Each bowl has some leaves that have blown in over the last few days. All right, that one's all drained. And you know what? I'm gonna empty this one first before I empty the bottom bowl. That way I'm not walking around in mud below me. I gotta set this down somewhere, right here. So this one doesn't have a plastic plug. It has a barb fitting that goes through the hole where the tubing goes up through. So I'm actually gonna remove this piece completely because this piece we don't winter up here, because after we get the cover on, it can catch wind, and it's not a super heavy piece. Even though it is concrete, the wind can catch it and make it fall over, topple, and damage it, and we don't want that to happen. So I'm gonna lift this piece out and then we'll empty this bowl. There we go, and I'm just gonna set this aside on the ground until we're ready for it. Oh, I have to reach in this one. Ah, it's cold. You know what, I think I need a wrench for that one. I think on a warmer day I might be able to do it with my hands, but boy, it's too cold. There we go. We'll just give it a second. Perfect. I'm just gonna leave these plastic pieces right down in the bowl and then the little plastic plug down in the bowl here so I don't lose them. Now we're gonna drain this big bowl, and there's a plug right down here. It's so much easier not needing to get my hands wet. So this is gonna just take a minute. All right, so now all the water's drained from the fountain, and I've got the plastic plugs undone in both of these bowls, as well as the fitting that was screwed into this top bowl. So I am gonna leave the pump in this fountain because it's going to be covered and there's no water in it. And that's the only worry, is if water gets inside the pump and freezes, it can break your pump. But since we don't have that worry, all the water is out, I'm just gonna leave it wintering over in the fountain. And that's how I've done it for lots of years and have never really had a problem with pumps wintering over, so long as water doesn't get to them. If you want to be completely safe, you can remove the whole pump and store it somewhere where it's dry and a little bit warmer. So now that the whole fountain's cleared out, I'm going to clean it because there is a little bit of buildup on the sides. Now this is not a necessary step, but I figured that it would be good now that it's all cleared out and it's not dried on there and caked on there yet. It's a good time to clean it. I'm just going to use a couple of brushes and a hose. So I'm just going to brush this algae and then rinse it out. So all the water's drained drained out, the fountain's clean, so the next step is to let it dry. And to do this, we just have to let it sit for 2 or 3 days, let the concrete completely dry out, and then we'll come back and show you what's next. All right guys, so it's been several days since we drained the fountain, so it's had a really good chance to dry out. I just grabbed the cover, so we're gonna head back out there. You just wanna make sure that you start this process when it looks like the forecast is calling for clear days, because if it rains on your fountain, then you're just set back a little bit more, and you really do wanna make sure it has a chance to dry out. All right, so I'm just gonna set this aside for a second, but you can see that the fountain is completely dried out. So we're ready for the next step, which is to put some fabric in it. So you can use old towels, old sheets, anything that can absorb water. I'm gonna be using some burlap sacks, which I just happen to have on hand because I saved them. This is what the fountain came packed in. And the whole point of doing this, you don't need a lot of it. The whole point is that if there's any condensation or water that forms inside the cover of this fountain, then that moisture will accumulate on the fabric, and that's what will freeze instead of the moisture accumulating against the concrete bowl and freezing on that. So I'm just gonna put a layer in each bowl. I always like to tuck in a little bit around the pump as well. Okay, so now with this top piece that I took off earlier, I'm just gonna go ahead and nest that in another piece of burlap, just like this, and then we are gonna put it in the bottom bowl. Now I could take this like to the barn or into a shed and store it there, but I like to keep all my pieces together. And the very last step is to put a cover on your fountain, which I have right here. So this is a proper cover. This was also made by Henry Studio. What it is a cone-shaped tarp. So you could use a regular tarp, but they're rectangular and it just doesn't fit this kind of size and style of fountain very well. So they have, I think, 5 different sizes, so you can kind of pick depending on what size of fountain you have or statue you have, and figure it out. This is an extra large, so I think it's gonna do really well. Now, one word about covering fountains. This is actually really hard for me, just to like keep it completely honest, because I love to look at my pieces out in the garden, even in the wintertime. They kind of serve as part of the bone structure of my garden. So to miss 3 or 4 months of the year looking at them because they're under cover is really tough. It is the proper thing to do though. And that's kind of the whole thing. I really wanted to show you the proper process of winterizing your fountain. I will see how long I last having this cover on. And you know, if you want to get the most amount of years out of your fountain, keep the cover on, keep them you know, protected from the elements. Yeah, so let me get the cover on, we'll see what it looks like. So if you had a larger base on your fountain, there is a drawstring so that you can cinch up the bottom of the tarp, and I'm gonna cinch it up as far as it goes. But this fountain, you know, as you know, it kind of comes down and narrows down at the bottom. So I'm just gonna tuck all the excess kind of underneath the bowl. Yeah, I think that that's perfect. So as it starts to rain and snow this late fall, winter, that moisture should hit this tarp and just roll right off onto the ground instead of forming a bunch of piles on here and creating weight. And of course it protects the concrete from the weather and from possibly, you know, getting wet and freezing and cracking, which is what you don't want. So we'll see how long I last with this fountain cover on. So those are the steps on how to properly winterize your fountains. And I hope that this video was helpful to you guys, and a huge thank you to Henry Studio for collaborating with us on this project. You should definitely go check out their website. We'll put all the links down below. They've got some beautiful stuff. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.